Thank you for having me. Just as you were talking, kind of like also about my talk, I figured it's a little bit weird doing it in the Google office as we're talking about AI. I don't know about you, but I actually stopped using Google. So for anything that I actually want to get the answer for. So
what are you using?
I hope it's, I'm actually using Claude for asking things. And how many of you are using like AI or Gen AI for like, on like a day-to-day basis? Yeah, it's amazing. So that's like how quickly the technology kind of like got caught up and people are using it. I was actually trying to do, it's crazy like the level of things that you can get with it. I was trying to like get something built for my kids with like Arduino and stuff like that, and you just give it the problem and it gives you like a whole list of components that you need to buy with the code that is running with like a 3D diagram of how to connect everything. It's like amazing. It's like, I don't know, before it, like you would have to ask Google and then you have to search and read a bunch of blogs that people wrote and mesh it together, and it's like, just like the level of it is really, I'm amazed at it, and I am praying for Google to be able to also make money for Gen AI and how it is. So we're talking about, obviously we're in a Kubernetes meetup, and my name is Asaf, I'm the co-founder and CTO of Logs.io. We're an observability solution. I don't know how many of you here know us. We're based in Boston and in Israel, and happy to be here. And I'm gonna talk about kind of like observability and how we see observability evolving in the next couple of years, and kind of like how Gen AI ties into observability. So we have so our vision around this, and we call it autonomous observability, which we kind of like borrow the inspiration from the autonomous car. I don't know how many of you remember about 10 years ago, people promised us that we're going to have cars that are going to drive by themselves. It's only starting to happen, but it's definitely going to accelerate. And the problem of driving cars is, I think, a little bit more complex than observability. But so we draw from this example, and kind of like this is part of our vision. What we see, and we are a 10-year-old company, so we've been in this market of observability for a relatively long time, and the level of complexity of writing code and cloud architecture and different things. 10 years ago, people didn't know how to spell Kubernetes, or very few people did. And now, just the level of complexity increases. Unfortunately, we as people are not getting smarter at the pace of technology getting more complex, and the ability to analyze the data and the ability to solve them within production environment is limited. There's so much a dashboard can do in alerting, and we got to the point where environments are very, very complex. The ability to analyze them using the tools we have today is not going to get any much better than it is right now. And our vision is that all of it is going to be changing in the next few years, and leveraging more of Gen AI. It's definitely a great technology to be put to use because it's a lot of data that exists within the observability solution, and what other tool than to kind of crunch the data and make sense out of it than Gen AI. The way we see it, and we've tried to model it over, I don't know how many of you know the modeling of autonomous cars, but like, it's not like a 0 to 100. There is like a range of things that you can do. And so we started modeling it by kind of like having level 0, which is manual observability, and level 4, which is going to be full observability. And I'm just going to paint the picture of what the future looks like. For us, we see it that in the future, the Gen AI is going to look at the data, is going to understand the deployment are being done, is going to understand the changes between deployment and the impact that every deployment does on the environment, whether it's cost, whether it's introducing of new errors, whether it's increasing the rates of existing error. All of it is going to be tied together to other Gen AI. It can go into the GitHub repository. It can understand the changes that happen. It can fix the code. It can write tests to be able to make sure things don't happen again, and basically create a much more stable environment for developers. So developer will write the code, push it to production, and everything behind it is going to be fully autonomous. It would configure the clusters autonomously and be able to make changes for it. We're not there yet, but technology exists, and I'll show you a bunch of things that we're doing. Same thing with autonomous cars. That obviously they're I don't know how many of you have tried the Tesla autonomous. It actually works. It's scary, but it works. Same thing is this, over the next few years, there's going to be technology that's going to make our lives easier and simpler. So for example, if we take the analogy of autonomous car, like the whole lane correction, this is a technology that came out of the development of autonomous cars. The whole smart cruise control that came out of it, the self-service parking, all of these things came out of the thing, and they're like little technology that help us. Same thing with observability. Some of the things are going to be, and I'll show you kind of like in a demo what we do. Some of the things are already in production. Some of them are already being able to, you can already take advantage of them and start using them. And as we progress throughout the years and the confidence and kind of like changing the way people work, we're going to see more and more technology leaked into it. So this is kind of like our vision, and I wanted to kind of like show you kind of like I'm going to skip the impact and just going to show you the demo. Any questions so far around what we do?
I guess I got a question, maybe it's a dumb one. So of those 5 levels, one of them in the center was highlighted, the yellow one. Is that?
Current state of the game?
Yeah, this is where we think the game is today. This is where we are as a company today. Yeah. And a lot of the changes that need to happen are changes that kind of also changing human behavior takes time. And there's a lot of people, I don't want to say in a bad way, especially not here, they're still using Google to find things. But it's because it takes time for you. You're automatically opening up a browser and you're using Google. But things are going to change, and I think even Google is going to eventually change to have a more conversational thing with the data. So to keep, yeah.
So sorry, I'm not very familiar with logs.
Yeah.
But so do you guys provide a hosted version that you feed data in?
Yeah.
And then you have the agent that's running remotely that's
correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're an observability solution. All of the observability solutions look the same. You put the data in, there is a view that looks similar to what I'm showing you right now. You can see graphs, you can see logs, you can see traces. This is basically an observability solution. Obviously, I think most, if not all of the observability solutions are SaaS-based, so you send the data to us. So this is kind of like the Explorer, the way you kind of like look at the data. 2 things that I want to show you. One of them is the ability to analyze exceptions. So yeah, I see an exception in the code, and what I can do is just click Analyze. The only thing we're asking the AI is show me the root cause analysis of this exception. Now, so when you use Gen AI, basically there's like three models that you can use it. One of them, you can just ask generic questions, like you use Claude, you use ChatGPT, you use all of it, you ask generic question. The second model is called RAG, where you augment with your own data. And the third model is called agent, which is you give it a problem, and it starts asking itself a bunch of questions, and eventually it kind of like understand what the solution is. So you see, the only question I asked it is kind of like, what is the root cause analysis of this? It went and understood like the services. It created graphs for the logs here. He saw the time that was a significant increase and in the time. He's going to check the deployment. So he understands that there is a concept like deployment in the code. All of it is like it's doing by its own. Like we didn't tell him what to do. We're like, go find the problem. He's going around and trying to find the problem. Eventually, the root cause analysis is front-end services, and we're using here the astronomy shop, which is the default, the open telemetry. Something unavailable, deployment of the recommendation service at, this is at 10:50 p.m. Appears to be the trigger, the metrics below show it, recommendation roll back to the recommendation service to the previous version, and basically implementing it. So all of these things, like we didn't tell them what to do. Like the level of competency of this thing is like beyond amazing. Yeah.
I was curious, so you're using Claude, you said? Or?
Yes, we're using Claude here as well. So
how are you managing the context window? Because you have so many things that could be pulling in to try to understand.
Yeah, so it's a very good question. This is kind of like where our secret sauce lies, because you cannot feed it all the data. So even the most sophisticated AI, you can get 2 million tokens. In logs, this is like 2 seconds. So you have to understand how to feed it the data in a way that is going to get things. We've been working on it for like 6 or 7 months now, and there's a team working to understand how to feed the right data. But once you have the right data and the structure, and he knows how to go and get other data, then it works like magic. So this is part of what we do.
Are you guys embedding the individual log entries? Is that kind of how you...
No, we're not embedding the individual. We're understanding from the logs which field should we stand it as initial, and then we instruct them to get more data. So for example, if he wants to go to deployments, we tell them how to get the deployments from the logs themselves, like what are the fields that are in deployment. So he's doing this kind of like on its own.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so this is kind of like the first capability that I want to show you, the root cause analysis. It's already live, it's already in production for us. To tell you that it's 100% accurate all the time, it's not. Okay, so I think there is still a lot of gaps in it, but two things. First of all, it gives you a sense of what are the actions that are taken in order to understand and troubleshoot the problem. It gives you a lot of information in the way. It creates the visualization for you in the way. I don't know how you used to work, but like in our environment, like we have so many dashboards, because every time someone wants to look at the dashboard, he doesn't remember which dashboard he did, and he looks at another dashboard and he edits it and save it under a different name. So here, you don't need to create dashboard. It creates the dashboards based on the question, and you can ask it to create visualizations as well, and basically get to the solution. Even if it's not the right solution, you know the steps that it took in order to understand it. So this is kind of like the AI agent and understanding. The second thing is that we kind of like fed it a bunch of questions that are that you can ask it. So what are the services error in the past 24 hours? Now, he knows to go back and look at what's going on in the environment, understand the queries, and you see how it works. And it's just like creating a bunch of questions that he can ask himself. We didn't tell him what is service. Like we just ask it what's the services error, and then he's going to try and analyze what do we mean by services. And so you see he's like grouping it by Kubernetes container name. He realized that services are the container name, and now he's looking for a log for top error producing services to understand the error nature, and give you a sense of all of it, all the errors that you got. These are the different deployments, the load generator, the front end, trivia operator, the shipping service, and all of it. So basically ask it like a very simple question. Now, the question I can ask it is, I can ask him like different questions that like, because it just has access to the data. Like show me. PII in the data. So I want to know if I have PII in my log information. Now, if I wanted to ask this as a search, I need to understand what is a PII, what is the format of a PII, make sure that I write it correctly and everything. And like, I didn't have to tell it, like he knows what is a PII. If you go to Claude or to ChatGPT today and ask what a PII, they know it. So he said, okay, PII is like email addresses, names, credit card number, or sensitive data. And now it's trying to figure out queries that are going to find PIIs in my information. This is just like like I didn't tell it what to do, just like ask a question and he's figuring out what to do.
This 24 hours window, or it's gonna?
You can ask whatever window you want. I mean, you can 15 minutes, 24 hours, yes.
Can you augment what data it has access to? So like, it seems like you have a set of tools that you're using.
Yeah.
But if I had like Istio installed and I wanted to get like Istio proxy config or something, can I like bring my own custom tool?
You can. Right now, we are building all the augmentation of the data, but the plan is to enable it for customers themselves to set like which augmented data they want to add into it.
The system right now is set and the tools are set.
Yeah, it's within what we, yeah.
You mentioned that your team is crunching the data.
Yeah.
How live is the data that your team is crunching and putting into the dashboard?
Oh, this is live. This is not, it's crunching the data to give it the prompt. So the way you build agent is you tell, okay, this is how you get deployment. These are a bunch of questions. This is how you get the errors from the logs and all of these things.
So if I'm connecting to cloud, so are they getting the data from the cloud and then crunching the data and then putting it back into your
We're a SaaS solution, so you send the data to us, and basically the kind of like it goes to the augmented data. So you see, okay, it found like a bunch of ID, a bunch of credit cards number, addresses and stuff like that in this. I can ask it like more generic questions like, show me.
If you don't mind me asking,
Yeah.
now that you found the PII data, what are you going to do about it?
Me personally, nothing. But
I always appreciate someone else's credit card number.
yes, this is a demo environment, but this is the astronomy shop. But I just want to kind of like give you a glimpse of the capabilities that we didn't train it to know what PII is. So I can ask her like, okay, show me Kubernetes cluster, Kubernetes with Miss CPU. Some question he gives like a completely weird answer, so I don't know what it's gonna do here. But just kind of like imagine it's actually a lot of fun to start asking questions the data instead of like using the good old way of writing queries, building dashboards, building visualization, doing alerts, and comparing them. Yes.
This gentleman's question tied in with something I was wondering, which is when you say something like "show me PII" and you're not giving a time range, maybe it was specified previously, but it's not, and you're not specifying what PII is. Do you find that the queries that it's running are more expensive? Is it doing a whole lot more queries over a larger period of time than a human being might do, or do you have guardrails in place to prevent that? Or?
We do have guardrails. If you don't give it the time that it goes by the time of the Explorer, which I think it's the last 15 minutes, you can specify a time. I think these are kind of like more generic. You can get very specific with it, but this is kind of like what we do. So I asked it like a question about CPU issue. Like I didn't even tell him what is like a CPU related issue, and it goes and asks kind of like figure out a bunch of things. Now, if you look at even the PIIs, I don't have it here, but so yeah, I mean, it gives me a bunch of things about the CPUs. Now I can go read it to figure out whether they're configured properly or not, and like what do I need to do with it, and how to handle it. If I did the PII previously, he gives me all the services that issued PII into the logs. I can go back to these ones and do it. Now, fast forward like a year or two in the future, I can connect it to GitHub, figure out what's the point it's writing the PII from the service, change it, and give me a pull request, and then I can go and just fix it, because reading code is like the basics of this thing. If you just give it the code, just reading code is like the basic, and writing code is very basic. Yeah.
What do you guys consider prioritization in some of these things? Like, is it giving it to me in an order in which it should be fixed, or?
No, not really. I think it's a different paradigm than working with alerts and the priorities of things. And again, our goal and our vision is that we wouldn't have to deal with it. It's going to be autonomous. Every deployment that you do, it's going to check the comparison to the previous deployment. He's going to understand that you're going to increase your cost by 2% because you did a deployment that has additional functionality that is going to use more resources. And he's going to tell you, okay, you increase your spend by 2% on this. He's going to make sure that there's new exception and go back to the code and figure out if it makes sense or not. So all of these things are kind of like fast forward into the future. Right now, like I'm surprised by the capabilities we have already. And I know I'm biased, but I'm surprised. Like we didn't develop the AI, but just using it in a proper way. Yeah.
Does this only work with logs?
No, it's actually looking for the
traces.
Yeah. It's looking for the trace. So one of the cool.
My theory, like, say your service isn't logging anymore for whatever reason, and you can, will this still work? Can it still ask you questions?
So it's looking at the logs and the metrics and the traces. So I just have to.
So say you misconfigure your service and it stopped sending you logs. Is it still able to kind of give you some level of clarity about what's going on?
It is going to give you some level of clarity. Obviously, you cannot see data that you don't have. But I think even the concept of sending all the logs to Logs.io or to other observability solution is also going to be obsolete. You can send all the errors and save the logs in S3. You can query S3 if you need more information. So I ask you, like the traces, asking like a trace, like give me all the root traces in the past hour. So for distributed tracing, finding the root trace is a complicated thing because they're all like the spans are tied together and you need to understand, find the span that has actually no child span into it. So now he's looking for trace IDs in the message field. He's looking for all the things that he's going to do, and he's come up with a solution for it. So it's not a replacement for observability today. I think it's more of an augmentation. But what we see it and what we see our customers using it is it's the same thing that we all use, kind of like ChatGPT today. It is a more convenient way because you can converse with the data. You can say, no, that's not it. Give me some more information, something else. Yes.
Is this agent able to learn as you ask it questions? So for example, you asked it, show me PII, and it had to go and figure out, okay, what's PII? Will it then save that information for the future, either for like every user of this platform or for your specific users? So if you start asking it like specific questions about how you have your logs set up, how you have your services set up, it'll start to remember these things so that it has additional context going forward. Is it able to do that? It's
not able to do it today. It's a different model of using Gen AI to be able to. So theoretically, you can build a model, and you actually have to use your own model. So you can use Facebook Llama model or something like that, and then you can give it all the data and say, hey, this is all my data, and this is my universe, and you can start asking questions of the data. It has a pretty robust database of what the PII inside the AI agent itself, so inside the agent themselves. So we don't do it today. Every query is we give you all the data to analyze. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you are using Claude on the back end, and I'm assuming that this is monetized, you're charging for this.
Yeah.
I'm curious, how is this billed? Because I could sit there all night, and like you said, it's interesting to ask questions. I can ask a lot of questions all night, which would result in tons of tokens being used.
Yes, exactly.
How does the user know that they're spending a lot of money by doing this amount of stuff?
It's a good question, and I think if you're tracking the Gen AI, I think the amount of money is going down and down and down in a very fast way. So today we don't monetize it. We plan on adding monetization, but this is going to be like in the level of cents per query or something like that. So it's not going to be that expensive, and obviously we give you the visibility to it. We're also planning to do every alert that is triggered already run the root cause analysis, and when you open up the alert, you're already going to see kind of like the analysis where you don't have to wait and run it on your own, and that can be optimized and saved for cache for later and stuff like that. Yeah. Go ahead.
What are some of the sort of biggest problems you're running into from a product perspective? Like, is it just the cost? Is it getting access to customer data, data sovereignty concerns, users not knowing sort of what prompts they should give the AI, like for BYO, RAG? Like,
Yeah.
What are the big blockers that you're
So we don't have a lot of blocker when it comes to data sovereignty because we're using Bedrock from AWS, and it solves all the privacy and all of these things. Cost is manageable, so we're using Sonnet 3.5, which is relatively inexpensive. And like I said, I think you all know how much money is being invested in developing Gen AI models. So the price is going to be a year from now is going to be 1/1000th of the price that it is today because there's so much competition and so much development. So I don't see cost as an issue. Changing human behavior is a big issue. It's always a big issue. I still remember when the first smartphone came out, and people say, "Hey, it's impossible to have a phone without a keyboard. Like it's not going to work." And look where we are today. Not many years after that. So yeah, changing human behavior is a challenge for us from a technology perspective. Augmenting the data and writing the prompts, it's a big challenge. And this is why we have a team that does it. So this is from a product perspective. It's a challenge. And it's always a challenge picking up which other things, other capabilities to add on our path to autonomous observability.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I saw this interview with Mark Zuckerberg within the last couple of days, and he's talking about how he's going to replace some of his developers with AI.
Yeah.
Does anyone see that?
Mid-level.
Yeah. Probably everyone in this room was like, yeah. You're in management at a technology company.
Yeah.
Do you see that as a possibility? Not specifically within IO necessarily, but like, tell us your thoughts on that.
I think again, there's been a lot of trends in the thing that's going to say they're going to replace engineers. The reality is that we can just do more. There is no single company that I know that says we have enough engineers. Or we know it's always like we have to prioritize, we can't do all the things that we wanted to do. So I think people would be able to achieve more. We are using it. Our engineering team, if you take away Copilot, they don't know how to write code anymore. It's like, who wants to write tests all the time? Who wants to write this? You just tell it what to do and it does it. It gets you like 80% there. I don't know if you've seen, there was a thread on what used to be Twitter. Someone said, write me a React app that mimics Trello. And like, it's amazing, like the app that it writes to like really, you can run it and it looks like Trello with like the boards and the moving, the Kanban board and everything. So from developer perspective, we use it to write everything, to write articles, stuff like that. It's even if you write something, fix all my grammar issue, fix this, change it to be longer, change it to be shorter. It's very easy to interact and very powerful. I think it's going to make everybody's life more efficient. To tell you that it's going to replace, I don't think so. I don't think we're in a world where there's like, there's always things to develop. That's my perspective. I don't think it's going to replace people.
To add to that point, so basically I work at Common, so we are kind of adding, as you mentioned, Amazon Bedrock. So we are replacing product support with Amazon Bedrock. So we don't have any more product support because it's learning on the knowledge bases. So it's inputting all the knowledge bases and learning from the CloudWatch. So that's my next question. So the queue is integrated into CloudWatch and Amazon Bedrock. So what's the advantage of your platform to that?
For what? I'm sorry, what's the advantage of?
Amazon Q.
Yeah.
So you don't even have to ask the question. So you just click on the Q on the right-hand side. So it gives you the input you're even looking at. So you're just looking at the logs, and you don't even have to ask the question. So it also predicts the question which you're looking at the logs for.
Yeah.
So what's your advantage?
I think part of it is again, it's knowing how to augment the data when it comes to observability. Sending logs, I mean, the amount of tokens that can be used are very limited. I don't know, I'm not familiar with the Amazon queue and how they do it, but the world is going to go to this direction, and some of the customers are going to pick us. Some of the customers are going to go with Amazon. Some with different vendors. But my message here is I think we're going to face kind of like a revolution when it comes to observability. And in the future, it's not going to be a bunch of dashboards that people don't remember which dashboard it is and getting alerts that they ignore. A lot of it is going to be done automatically in the background, and you're going to have a prompt, and you can ask questions, and you can get what you want, and data is going to be fed to you, and we're going to see a different experience when it comes to observability and managing it, and so that's our vision.
So I think the recurring theme throughout your talk is context is key, right? So how do you put things into context, and how do you smartly shrink down like the number of things that you're putting into the prompt? So how do you improve upon that? Like, do you, because that's where that human right now could put into context a little bit better, right? So do you foresee that you work closer with the customers, that you're in the retail situation, that you're in, security, I see seeing that out there. So what is your vision for improving that context?
So we have two parts of the vision. First, one of them is us doing a better job at what we do all the time. The second thing is opening it up to customers to be able to, they know their domain, they know what they want to do, and we're engineers, so we want to write things like that. So the ability to create a library of prompts that a customer can augment with their own prompts and queries, it's going to help their own business. And like mentioned here, you can access all the documentation, you can connect to the Slack channels, you can get the transcript from Zoom meetings around this and understand what's going on. So I think the possibilities are kind of like endless with this.
If you don't mind me just asking a follow-up question, because I think the next phase really is to connect with the on-prem data to have better context, right? You don't know what you don't have. Yeah. But if you could connect to the customer. So I actually saw the Major League Baseball. That was the one that posted Major League Baseball from Shulman on the link. And I think the most powerful thing was he has this dashboard that he built, but he is able to put into the Major League Baseball context. So he knows the Boston ballpark versus the Seattle, who has the circuit, what is the interface that it's connecting to. So do you foresee at some point that you want to have this conduit between the customer's on-prem data versus your cloud-based, and having that work synchronous? And I think that goes back into adding more augment the customer data, right? Exactly. This is exactly what we see, and I think first of all, I actually think that the AI knows today more about baseball than and games than definitely more than me. You can probably ask it about different arenas and games and stuff like that, even though some of the data is a little bit old. But I think this is the exact thing. It's how do you create prompts that give I want to know who the people in the organization are. You can go into the Slack and you can figure out all the directory and figure out who is the CEO of the company, and if there is a vulnerability, this is the CEO's computer. You don't have to build like an ITSM system with like databases and relationship and changes all the time. It's going to figure out the information in real time of what it is, and it's going to take a little bit longer. Instead of just like that, it's going to take 5 seconds, 10 seconds. But I think what we can do with it is, and what I showed you now is like the tip of the iceberg of what we do. So imagine like the entire community of engineers writing stuff to it and improving the way it works. So, thank you. Yeah.
What do you think is the timeline to get to level 5?
It's a good question. It's going to be less than 10 years for sure. It's going to be before everybody's going to be, because it's a different problem, because a lot of the things are already being automated. It's not like the biggest problem with autonomous cars is the non-autonomous cars. If everything was autonomous, it would have been done years ago. The biggest problem is like the people walking the streets, the people driving their cars. This is the challenge. And here in the development, we already, as engineers, try to automate a lot of these things already. So they're already in a flow of like automated CI/CD and continuous deployment, and all of these things are automated. It's about getting some smart into it. So, yeah.
How do you go about evaluating these data methods to verifying the answers?
What?
In other words, when you're working and building this, what was your?
It's a good question. How do we validate it? Because sometimes it just invents a bunch of answers. Yeah, it does. And so one of the things we actually do, we're actually using AI to do it. So we're using Gen AI and say, okay, this is the answer we got. Is this a reasonable answer for the problem that we got? Because then you get a different perspective on the problem, and it's actually almost eliminates all the hallucination and stuff like that. So sometimes it happens, and I can tell you, this is not perfect. And the other thing we have to get used to as engineers, we like things to be predictive. So here, if you ask the same question over and over again, you might get a different answer, even if it's the same question, because the whole way it works is very non-predictive. So it works in a completely different way, not the way we're used to. We're used to software being very predictive. You ask the question, you get the same answer, and this is different. But we can't stop progress. This is happening. Yeah.
Yeah. So imagine you use Claude, and I guess in Claude you have different modes. If you're a novice, you can use the explanatory mode and then get more, more out of it. So do you feel like the current responses that you would get would benefit from maybe users having that customization,
to use the different models for Claude?
No, maybe the AI agent could be configured to have more detailed responses for someone who's just a novice versus.
Yeah, you can. Again, you can do a lot with it. You can also change the different models and have someone say, hey, I want to use a cheaper model. I want to use a more expensive model. I want to have more data augmentation to do it and have a simpler. You can ask it to summarize it for you if you don't like to read all these texts and it's just the same experience that we all experience today when we're using ChatGPT or using Claude or using whatever. It's the same experience. Yeah.
Should we wrap it up?
Yeah. Sorry.
Is there a certain log level that provides maximum value versus?
I don't know that to answer this. We haven't.
Yeah, is there a certain amount of data that you suggest sent to Logs.io to get
I think if you start, we're all into sending all the data. The other thing, which is there's the potential of reducing the cost, because right now most of our customers save the data for 14 days or 30 days, just because they can address their issue. But if you can address the issues in a day, or the Gen AI can address it, and you can save it in an S3 bucket, it completely cuts the cost down for that. So.
Have you guys thought about doing kind of log summaries, or rather than throwing everything out, kind of here are interesting logs, kind of winnowing down, and then just keeping a smaller subset, because it can be really nice to have 6 months ago's logs, but not if it's 10 terabytes of garbage.
I think this is I wouldn't say million, but it's the $1 billion question of what logs are you using and what is interesting in this. And I think definitely this is something that we can look at the Gen AI to look at.
Myself, it's not a fully baked thought, but is it possible to get something like the agent to actually generate markdown, so you could actually take that and have higher res visualizations?
Yeah, you can generate visualization with it, and you can definitely generate the visualization that we have here, where it's generating. I don't know where they are. These are simple one, but it can generate very sophisticated one. The amount of AIs in the world, generating images, generating videos, generating all of these things, amazing things that are happening, and we only just got started with this, really, literally got started. So, thank you.